Hello and welcome to this special interview. This is Muneef Khan, and joining us today is Francesca Albanese. She is the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the occupied Palestinian territories. An international lawyer and legal scholar, her work has focused on documenting violations of international humanitarian and human rights law in Gaza and the West Bank. Her recent UN reports describe Israel's actions in Gaza as constituting genocide. These reports have drawn global attention and sparked sharp debate in naming not just state actors, but also corporate and institutional enablers. Her findings have challenged long standing diplomatic and economic alliances. Albanese's work has also made her a target of coordinated pressure campaigns, public attacks, and personal threats. In this conversation, we speak with her about the legal frameworks she works within, the systematic obstacles she faces, and the global and regional implication of the crisis, including India's evolving position on Palestine. This is a conversation about international law, accountability, and the global response to one of the most urgent humanitarian crises of our time. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Albanese.
Thank you for having me.
My first question to you. You've described Israel's actions in Gaza as genocide. What are the key legal blind spots in how the international system defines and prosecutes genocide today?
Rather than blind spots, I can tell you what genocide is and how it's been held accountable. I mean, people have been held accountable for genocide, on which counts how genocide has been identified. And genocide is, I mean, as a lawyer, I approach genocide as a legal concept, and so I look at the main reference, which is in the 1948 Genocide Convention, or the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, which defines genocide as any act of the following committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, religious, or racial group. And these acts are acts of killing members of the group, inflicting severe bodily or mental harm on members of the group, creating conditions of life calculated to destroy members of the group, or taking measures to prevent birth or transferring children. I've personally documented, of course, Article 3 also lists other crimes, including incitement to genocide. Incitement to genocide is a crime itself, or being complicit, supporting, being connected to, and etc. So, in order to have genocide, we need to have what is called double intent or specific intent. So not only the commission of the crime, the intent to kill, and the intent to, for example, torture and starve, but it's through these acts the intent to destroy the people. And I've accused Israel, I've said in March 2024, I believe that there are reasonable grounds to hold Israel accountable for acts of genocide. Or that there are reasonable grounds to believe that Israel is committing genocide. Because by then, and I remind your audience that in January 2024, after being activated by South Africa, the International Court of Justice had already concluded that there was a presumable, there was a plausibility of genocide and irreparable harm to the rights of the Palestinian people protected under the Genocide Convention. So it was not remote and faraway concept or this was not intellectual speculation. But when I published the first report, Israel had killed 30,000 people in retaliation to the violence of October 7, 2023, and started to destroy, pulverize, not just the life of combatant, but anyone who could be associated to anyone who's in Hamas, including doctors, nurses, and the words used were in fact genocidal. Let's starve them all. There are no innocents in Gaza. Everyone is responsible. It's a nation responsible. The Amalek, this term that Israeli leaders and soldiers have used over and over, destroy the Amalek, which is a biblical, quite controversial biblical passage in which the encouragement is to destroy the Amalek, the danger to the Israelites in the Bible, which is interpreted as the danger to the Israeli people today. And the message is go and destroy the Amalek, the mother, the suckling, the baby, the nursing baby, the camel, and the donkey, representing livelihood. And this has been done. I mean, I wish I had been listened to. I wish the South Africa proceedings and the ICJ provisional measure that ensued had been respected, because Israel was asked by the ICJ to stop any act that could cause genocide, that could be genocidal, like indiscriminate killing with intent to destroy the people. And let's focus on these. What is critical in order to differentiate genocide from other crimes like war crimes and crimes against humanity is the, the intent to destroy a people as such. It's that as such that is where the whole emphasis should be, because Palestinians have been targeted as such, as Palestinians, since October 2023. The most affected, 70% of the victims have steadily been women and children. Why? Because this is the demography of Gaza, because Israel has made no difference. Israel has destroyed everything: homes, residential places, neighborhoods, bakeries, mosques, churches, universities, schools, hospitals. And this has been one of the feature. So not just the extreme, the sheer numbers of killings, now there are 60,000, but in fact experts say that this is much lower than the effective number. First of all, because 60,000 are just killed by trauma, so by fire, bombs, snipers, and who have been ascertained. So there are people who have been killed and their bodies remain rotten in the street, unidentified. But also there are those who died because of lack of hospital and medical care, cancer patient, leukemia, other diseases, or because of the hunger and lack of essential supplies like water and food.
But coming back to the question of genocide itself, do you foresee a need to recognize new forms of genocide, such as economic genocide or technologically mediated genocide? And how might international law evolve to address them?
Look, I'm not into intellectual speculation right now. I think that the definition we have is good enough to stop the genocide there. Israel, its accomplices. The problem, and I'm glad to speak to the Indian people, because the problem is also that many governments, including the Indian government, continues to purchase and sell and transfer weapons. I mean, there are governments like the Indians who are giving legitimacy to Israel, partnering with it at the time it's committing genocide, for God's sake. I mean, that does traumatize an entire population, including those in exile. It is killing without respite and starving without respite. 2 million people. It's so horrendous. This is one of the most cruel genocides that human mind can remind of and can think of. So it's time to impose an arms embargo. And I think that here it's not about religion. You don't need to be Muslim or Christian to empathize with what's happening to the Palestinians. These children, any child is our child. All children are our children. And this must be stopped. And surely it will not stop if countries like yours, India, a country like mine, Italy, continue to treat Israel, the state which today is accused in two international courts of war crime, crimes against humanity, and genocide, business as usual.
And coming to the threats against you, you've spoken about receiving threats and intimidation. Are there identifiable patterns? When I say identifiable patterns, such as links to state agencies or corporate actors or disinformation networks of that sort?
Look, the state that has been most forthcoming in its assaults against me, my mandate, which is clearly shocking because an international human rights lawyer serving the United Nations Human Rights Council for free, and I am immune from legal proceedings because of the work done in the exercise of these functions. And the United States, with Israel, followed by another number of states, have been really aggressive toward my mandate in defense of Israel, like I think of Germany or France, who have accused me of anti-Semitism because of having said that, for example, the horrible violence that happened against Israelis, which I condemned and condemned on October 7th, was not prompted by anti-Semitism, was part of a long path of attempts of the Palestinian people to liberate themselves from the oppression. And so the attacks against me attributable to member states, the misinformation, the defamation, go and which has not been, of course, I have the support of so many member states. The majority of member states is with me, is behind me, supports me and protects me. But there have been 4 or 5 states on the attack. Now the United States and Israel have escalated their attack, particularly the United States, imposing sanctions on me as a person. I am the first UN official to be sanctioned by the United States. What does it mean? It's a lot because all of a sudden I'm treated like Osama bin Laden. Seriously. So no one can in the US can legally enter any dealing with me, and my assets have been frozen. So I'm paying personally with this. It's unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. And this is just for denouncing and for asking the end, for denouncing a genocide and for asking the end of a genocide. As an Italian, as someone who comes from, I mean, I'm born in a country which less than 1 century ago was responsible, co-responsible for Nazi fascism. And we killed 8,000 Jewish people in concentration camps. We sent them to die, and how many of them were starved in ghettos? We don't even count them. So because of this, and because of European colonialism, which is not removed from the collective body of former colonized people. I mean, as a European, I have it's part of my DNA to stand against this, to be part of a new Europe, to be part of a new global conscience where we're really equal. But my friends, we need to work together from Italy, from India, from Asia, from Europe. Otherwise, the future will be much more greener for all of us.
And that brings me to the work you've put out, your reports. I wanted to ask, have any of the corporations named in your reports taken retaliatory steps, either legally, politically, or even through influence campaigns?
So far, no, because but also I picked cases which were mostly known. I put these companies on notice. So I took cases, companies that have been participating in the economy of the occupation for a long time, from arms manufacturers, uh, cos- uh, um, construction, machinery
I'm guessing,
companies.
I'm guessing even tech companies also feature
Of
on this.
course, tech companies, tourism, good production, service production, and supply chain, banks, pension funds, universities. So this is not a list. This is a set of illustrative cases to explain the economy of occupation that has also turned into an economy of genocide. So these companies have been put on notice for months. I gave all of them time to reply to me. Some have, 18 of them have, the majority have not. I presented the facts that I based my assessment on, and I provided for each of them an, an individual legal analysis of what their company uh, was responsible for in my analysis. And so they were put on notice. As I said, its due process has been ensured, and that is it. So I don't think there is any possibility to go for legal proceedings.
And coming to within the United Nations system, this is a question which I really wanted to ask for a long time. Have you faced any pressure to dilute your findings or limit the scope of your investigation within the UN system?
No. I've experienced delays. I've experienced lack of support, while the special rapporteurs, for example, have been very supportive, some member states as well. The organization per se has been, in the beginning, quite quiet. Recently, there has been a more robust response by the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the President of the Human Rights Council. The Secretary General has been pretty quiet, which is unusual for a Secretary General, because there are two precedents of much less serious, in my view, attacks on special rapporteurs at the domestic level, and the respective Secretary Generals were very robust in protecting the special rapporteurs.
Right.
It is what it is.
And you mentioned India's role, and I did have a question which was very India-centric in this case. And this is to do with India's growing military and tech ties to Israel. Does it bear responsibility in enabling violence? And should its civil society interrogate this more deeply?
This is something that I'm not best placed to answer, because, I mean, from outside, it seems that India has become a place where sectarian violence is more recurrent, and unpunished. This is what I see from outside, but I don't have really elements to. I've not studied it. This is my perception. Yeah, the fact that the government goes hand in hand with Israel, keeps on buying and selling materials that are for increasing the capacity of governments to arm citizens, is something that shouldn't make anyone feel safe, Israelis and Indian citizens alike.
And when it comes to the information warfare or the media narratives, you face attacks from both mainstream media and disinformation network. How do you see this convergence shaping the public understanding of the genocide?
Look, I think that the situation has changed completely in the past months, especially this year after the ceasefire, when people saw what everything had gone quiet, and still Israel kept on killing hundreds of people during the ceasefire, and then the starvation campaign that was escalated, that has been brutal. So seeing babies dying of hunger, look, dying of wounds is horrible. Dying of hunger is something that consumes the body from within, that makes you crazy. And seeing a baby dying of that, it's an agony that no one can recover from. You don't need to be that person to feel how horrible it is. And this is haunting, not just for everyone. So the tide is changing. It has changed forever. I mean, we take time to absorb and let information sink in, but Israel has lost its legitimacy. Of course, Israel will not be able to regain the pretense, the veneer of democracy, of you only democracy of the Middle East, let alone. Israel will not be able to clean itself from the genocide that it has already committed. So I think that people understand that. Yes, there are some very right-wing, because this is the thing, there is a critical alliance between this government, the Israeli government resonates with right-wing governments in Europe and elsewhere, with pretty fascist ideologies. This is what I noticed as a European. I mean, as an Italian, the people who stand in solidarity with this and defend this government are fascist, are extreme right wing. Of course, there are also others because of hypocrisy or but it's again it gets there is an ideology out there and people understand more people understand the risks and try to detach themselves from this. The point is that unfortunately, I wish the crimes that had been committed could be attributed only to Netanyahu. It's not just Netanyahu. 80% of the non-Palestinian population in Israel keeps on asking for the Palestinian to be expelled, to be punished for the violence. Many continue to blame for the violence to continue. And again, it's a nation that will need to undergo healing and accountability when the Israelis will realize what they have done. It will be like a getting a truck in the face. It's going to be huge. In this, I don't think that there is still much sustainable or attainable criticism against me personally. I keep on seeing the growing support from lawyers worldwide, and so economists who have endorsed my report, diplomats, civil servants, the people all over the world. So frankly, yes, of course, there are a few detractors, but I do not have the time to really take care of them right now. There is a genocide that we must stop.
Of course. And I was talking to Palestinian human rights lawyer Raji Sorani a few weeks ago. And then, of course, Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta, and I have done a few interviews as well. I noticed that in their inputs, timely, they have been raising the fact that the situation in Gaza is beyond a disaster. Like sometimes they say that sometimes they refer to the fact that even the word genocide is less to describe the horrors which are taking place in Gaza from their own eyes, which they've seen. But I want to talk about resistant movements. Are there lessons from past resistant movements, such as the anti-apartheid movement or the Tamil diaspora efforts, that inform your vision for global accountability?
Um, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer this question, but what I know is that there is a movement for legality, for international legality and respect of human rights and constitutional law uh, around the world right now that has been triggered by the Palestinian Liberation Movement, which is the BDS movement. I see this being inspired by the resistance to apartheid South Africa, and I think it makes sense because the BDS movement, the Boycott, Divest and Sanction movement, asked for measures to be taken in the face of protracted, crystallized, cemented impunity. It's not dissimilar from the movement of boycotting and divestment and sanctions that was activated in South Africa against apartheid South Africa. I find the BDS movement more refined and more human rights friendly in the sense that they do not advocate for the discrimination against any Israelis, but Israeli institutions and Israeli economic mechanisms. I I think that they do move squarely in the realm of international law, which imposes sanctions, which commands the imposition of sanctions on states that commit international wrongdoings and crimes.
And
So yeah, and then the obligation to divest, the responsibility of companies to divest is connected to the fact that they are obliged to ensure due diligence.
I have my last two questions, my final two questions. And one, of course, is directed towards you. But before that, I wanted to ask is that what is one truth about the war in Palestine that remains consistently erased, even by sympathetic international actors?
I didn't understand the
What is
question.
what is one truth about the war in Gaza that remains consistently erased or has not been talked about enough?
No, I think there is a general silencing and obliteration of the Palestinian people. Even, I mean, right now, from a personal point of view, I see a lot of solidarity toward me, people asking for a Nobel Prize to me. But I'm not a hero. I'm just a lawyer who's doing her job. No more, no less. Yes, it's probably commendable that I do that for free and giving my best out of it. I take it as karma. But but no, the real heroes here are the Palestinians. The Palestinians have denounced apartheid for decades, and then we celebrate international and Israelis who denounce it when apartheid is clearly in our face. The Palestinians suffered genocide. 220 Palestinian journalists are killed, and then we celebrate heroes, people who denounce the genocide from outside. Again, I think that there is a general underestimation of the price that the Palestinians are taking on themselves, and they deserve absolutely more respect and recognition for the incredible resilience, patience, love, and generosity they are showing, including in educating us at the time of unprecedented pain and sorrow for their people.
And ma'am, that brings me to my final question. And I wanted to ask if your mandate were to end tomorrow, and I mean, what unfinished task would haunt you the most, and what message would you have for your successor?
There are a few tasks that we need to still unpack. But I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to create more fear for the work ahead. I would like to be the last special rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territory because I would like to see the day there is no need for this mandate anymore. But if to my successor, I would say this is a 100 year long injustice that goes back to colonial era, to British colonialism, for which the British people look at the British government, they are not even just for what they have done, for their responsibility, for what they are caused. And I know that the Indian people would understand better than anyone else, these other than the Palestinians. Just for what they are caused, they should have a different behavior. So when we speak to member states, we shall not forget that they're not all equal, and there are states who are more responsible than others. Don't forget history, and don't interpret international law as if it was like a dry pair of scissors in your hands, but use it as an act, as people should use human rights as a shield and as a sword and as a tool to advance love.
And I really appreciate, ma'am, you giving us the time. I know you have a busy schedule, and I really appreciate that you joined us on such a short notice. On top of that, thank you for having us, and I hope to stay in touch with you.
द वायर के और वीडियोस देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें और बेल आइकन पर क्लिक करें। स्वतंत्र पत्रकारिता की आर्थिक मदद करने के लिए डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए लिंक पर जाएं और अपनी राशि चुनें।